morning, guys. Welcome to another episode of Bob's Sunday School. Hey, I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about something that I'm not a whole lot of people are aware of. You guys remember the movie Superman Returns that Bryan Singer directed with Brandon Routh? Well, what would have happened if that movie would have been successful? All right, so here's the deal. Bryan Singer had a complete pitch, right? A complete pitch, storyline, script of what the next movie was going to be. Actually, it was going to be called The Man of Steel, okay? So that's the same movie. That's the same title that eventually they ended up using for the Henry Cavill movie. But it was very different because it was a direct sequel to what we saw in Superman Returns. Alrighty, so do you guys remember Superman, when he's fighting Lex Luthor, and I think that island, that continent that Lex Luthor was creating with Krypton technology, it was called New Krypton, right? So, Superman goes underneath, picks it up, launches it into space. Well, what ends up happening is that in zero gravity, this Kryptonian this landmass becomes a sphere, actually becomes a bit of a moon, okay? And now it's outside of our atmosphere. It's basically becoming a second moon. Not as big as the moon, but it's a small moon, okay? So all of a sudden, we end up seeing that a spaceship arrives, okay? This spaceship arrives, and we find out that it's another Kryptonian, okay? This Kryptonian, now this is the sequel. This is Man of Steel, okay? And how do I know this, by the way? Well, at the time, I was very, back 10, 12 years ago, I was already I was working in the industry. I knew some people that were involved in this production of Superman Returns and were really in the know of what was going to happen in the next movie, okay? So again, New Krypton is formed outside of our atmosphere. It's become a small moon, okay? Spaceship shows up. Spaceship shows up with another Kryptonian. Superman goes and see who this guy is because all of a sudden the spaceship shows up and he recognizes that it's Kryptonian technology. And lo and behold, yep, it's another Kryptonian. I can't remember the name of the Kryptonian, okay, the name that he's using, okay, but he shows up and he tells Superman, well, listen, after the destruction of Krypton, I was actually out and about, looking for signs of Kryptonians surviving this, and all of a sudden I got a beacon, and that's what happened, basically. He was able to sense or discover this Kryptonian technology, New Krypton, that was outside of Earth's atmosphere, and he came out to see what it was, okay? So when he gets here, he starts asking Superman a lot of questions because he's like, hey, you're pretty much like the leader of this world, right? And he's like, no, right? I'm here to serve. And he's like, here to serve, but you have all these powers. You could do so much more. And, Superman kind of goes back to, well, I'm not to interfere, right? I'm not to interfere with what's going on Earth. I'm just here to help. This Kryptonian disagrees. This Kryptonian believes that with all the Kryptonian technology, with his strength, with everything, he should be making it a better world. To the point where he literally starts using Kryptonian technology to get rid of disease. He goes to like the United Nations and kind of tells people, stop fucking around, stop the war, stop this. And at one point there was going to be like this conflict out like in the Middle East, and he shows up and he just decimates the armies. And you know what? He starts bringing peace to the world. What's crazy is a lot of people now start turning against Superman because they feel, well, shit, Superman had all this, he could have done this a long time ago and he didn't. Right? And they kind of make Superman feel a bit of a pariah. He's like on the outside, and Superman still doesn't quite know what to do because, again, this is another Kryptonian. He's doing good, but there's suspicions. Well, lo and behold, at one point, Superman goes into the spaceship to figure out what's going on, and it's, by the way, it's a gigantic spaceship, right? And when he goes into one, like the cargo holds, if you want to call it that, he discovers that there's just these massive amounts of bodies, clone bodies, okay? Basically identical bodies to the one of this Kryptonian, okay? And then he starts investigating to see what's going on, and he realizes that this Kryptonian has been traveling the galaxy since the destruction of Krypton, okay? And he goes to these worlds and he gets them near perfect, and then something catastrophic happens and they get destroyed, okay? He goes and confronts them, and then he realizes that it's actually Brainiac, okay? It was actually Brainiac that would download himself into the body of these Kryptonian clones. And if you guys know a little bit about the storyline of Brainiac, you know, that's kind of like what Brainiac does, right? He wants to reach perfection. And that's what he's trying to do with Earth, okay? So he confronts them. They start battling. So at one point, look, Superman goes and destroys this gigantic spaceship, okay? He kills... actually, he first destroys... he ends up defeating, okay, Brainiac, but Brainiac will just download himself into a new body. So he ends up destroying the entire spaceship. Now, something happens here that's actually kind of cool. You know, I think it was kind of cool, is that right before the destruction happens, Brainiac scans Earth, right, to see if he could download himself, but he could only download himself into another Kryptonian, okay? You guys might remember that Superman has a son, right? And the son is Jason White, right? Remember the little kid? All right, well, he ends up downloading himself into Jason, and Jason ends up having like a fast growth spurt. Like he basically becomes a full-size adult when this happens. And we end up having now Brainiac inside the body of Jason White. Again, this is the son of Lois Lane and Superman from Superman Returns. At the end, right, Superman has to fight his own son, a.k.a. Brainiac, and to be able to, save the Earth, he has no other choice. But basically, he has to defeat Brainiac, and by defeating him, he has to basically kill his own son, right? So the movie was very emotional. At least that was the concept of the movie. So what do you guys think? Would it have been better than Man of Steel? It definitely sounds better than Superman Returns. I even though I'm a big defender of Superman Returns, and I think that that movie was very beautifully shot, and it was absolutely gorgeous, and it was a nice add-along to the Donner films. Unfortunately, what I feel is that we didn't get enough of Superman by him. You know, I don't know if you guys noticed this. Superman never threw a punch in Superman Returns, which to me sounds kind of corny, right? But again, I still like that movie. It was beautifully shot. I totally believe that this movie would have been a great sequel, okay? But let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to comment, subscribe, and like. I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks, guys. See you next time.